Join us and unwind with a good book. Welcome to Relaxing Reads.
Hi, it's Deb in Halifax.
Hi, it's Simone in Vancouver.
Hey, it's Tanya in Edmonton.
Our latest read, Exes and O's, is about a romance novel-obsessed social media influencer, Tara Chen, who revisits her exes on her hunt for true love in this rom-com from author Amy Lee. Romance novel connoisseur Tara has had her heart broken 10 times by 10 different men, all of whom dumped her because of her stage 5 clinger tendencies. Nevertheless, she's determined to find the one. The only problem? Classic meet-cutes are dead thanks to modern dating apps. So Tara decides to revisit her exes in hopes of securing her very own trope-worthy second chance romance. Enter firefighter Trevor Metcalf, who's the first to rush into a burning building but the last to rush into a relationship. Love just isn't his thing. And when his new roommate Tara enlists him to help her reconnect with her exes, he reluctantly agrees. But Tara's journey is leading him to discover his own new chapter. So, ladies, there was a whole lot of something in there, wasn't there?
Hot.
Yeah, it was sizzling, as you might expect with a firefighter in the story.
Yes, I think that, one of my first thoughts is when Tara goes to go to her new place and firefighter, Trevor is having some intimate relationships with a woman in the kitchen. And then he turns around and she kind of sees the whole package and the way it's like, how big was it? That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. I think this might have been the steamiest book we've ever read, because we've read a lot of, rom-coms and romance books. But this one was just, when it starts like that, I was like, what's going to happen next?
Right. Yeah. It wasn't just suggesting things. It was all out there.
It was happening. Yeah.
It was happening there. Yeah. I mean, it was like that slow burn. It takes a while, but then when you get there, it's like, oh my goodness.
But the slow burn is nice, because you're like, it makes you want to read faster, because you're like,
yes.
When's it going to happen? What's going to happen? Just let me know. And I think that's what made me get through this book so quickly, because I was so curious as to how this was going to go, because I didn't think that it was going to end the way it did, but a part of me hoped it would. I was really lost during certain parts, but yeah, it was good.
It was very good.
Yeah. I just think this whole idea of, your life kind of being a little bit out of control, and Tara in the book, the lead character, she's like, she needs to find a date for this Valentine's Day dance at work. And so she goes through all of her exes to try to figure out, what went wrong, but maybe there's hope of rekindling some of that. Like, have you guys ever rekindled with an ex, or thought that would be a good idea?
No, but can I tell you something? So a few weeks ago, when I had my time off work, I took a week off just to burn some vacation days. And I ended up going downtown in the city to meet some girlfriends, and we went out to lunch. And while I was at lunch, one of my exes from broadcasting school is now like the general manager of this restaurant. And I just see him and I was like, what the heck? It's been over 20 years since I've seen him. And I was like, well, maybe he doesn't remember me, because it was a very short-lived, broadcast school romance, like less than a month, but it made the rest of the program very awkward. But anyways, I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know, maybe he's not going to recognize me. And then all of a sudden he sees me from across the way, gives me a little wink, and then walks over and he's like, hey, how's it going? Like, what's it been? Like 20 years? And I was like, yes.
Oh my gosh.
It has. And then there was something wrong with my friend's Diet Pepsi. And so he's like, let me go fix that for you right away. But it was kind of funny. And then on the way home, I was just, I don't know why, I started thinking about him, and I was like, wow, it's been a long time. And now he's married. He's got, he has a son and another child on the way. And it was just one of those things that made me kind of think about ex-boyfriends for that. And I haven't had many, but I just was like in that kind of zone. So when I started reading this, I'm like, it's interesting when you find kind of those moments to reflect. And some of them I've never seen again. Like my ex-boyfriend from high school, it's been like over 30 years, never seen him. him. So it's just interesting that you're like, am I ever going to run into them again? Or was that just done and dusted now? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I've never looked up old boyfriends like Tara has. But I was living in Vancouver and I was at, that really high-end department store downtown, Simone Leone's or whatever. I was down there and I happened to have, it was the first guy who he broke my heart. He was an artist. He went to Alberta College of Art. He was like this alternative guy. He smoked Dunhill cigarettes and it's just and had the best hair ever, from back in the 80s, dyed black and looked like Robert Smith. Anyway, I was living in Vancouver and I happened to be walking in this department store downtown Vancouver and I saw him. And I'm like, and I actually ducked behind a pillar because I didn't want to see him. It was just because he ended up going out. We were at Earl's one time when I was going out with him, and he said he didn't like this server, and we always used to talk about her. And then he ended up going out with her. Oh. And then he married her. It was just this crushing thing. I was young, but it's this crushing thing. So when I saw him in Vancouver, I'm like, no.
Did you talk to him?
No.
You just kind of avoided him.
I ducked.
You ducked and darted.
And I think
ducked and darted.
I think that's what you think. When you see them, are you going to talk to them? Or are you going to look the other direction? And that's because you're just, it's especially when time has passed or someone's broken your heart. It's a whole different scenario.
I think with those who might have been in my life for a moment in time, I've usually been living in the same area, so close by. So initially it was, gosh, where can I go where I can actually avoid them because you have so many similar places that you hang out or small towns. But lately there have been a couple I've been thinking about, but we live hours away. So I'm not necessarily going to run into them, but I would probably I think initially early on after, you kind of end things, be darting and looking for cover. But now I think it would be, it might not be as awkward. And I think that there are a couple I would like to catch up with and, kind of do what Tara did and ask the questions and find out what happened exactly, because things were left, kind of open-ended and there was no real closure. So,
Deb, you need to do that, and you need to allow us into that journey because, and especially as you grow and you mature and you become an adult, you handle things differently that you did maybe when you were in an emotional state during that breakup. So it would be nice if you didn't have that closure you needed to just ask those questions, right?
Yeah. And I think it may weigh on you from time to time, and then something triggers or like a memory or something you shared, and then you wonder, why didn't I take charge and just say, hey, I just have one question. Why? And give me an answer, and I'm fine with that. Instead of just kind of gradually walking away and not giving you anything.
Yeah.
And I think with Tara too, a lot of all these relationships are from her college days or high school sweethearts, right? So I think she was also finding as she was meeting them, she's she's older now. And I think she's sort of looking at it going, oh yeah. Like the guy who showed up on the Segway.
What a character.
Jeff. Oh my
gosh.
I mean, you only date Jeffs, those kind of guys at a certain part in your certain time in your life, right? You go revisit that and you're like, oh boy, wow. Okay. Yeah. So I loved how she went through all the guys, Yeah.
And how different you recognize that you were in that particular time in your life. You're younger and, every few years you go through changes. And then, 5 to 10 years, you're a completely different person. And at the time, you don't think that there would be that much change in your life. But then, you see a character like him show up and think, wow, I was into that.
Yeah. I laughed out loud at that one, actually.
I did. There were a lot of laughs. I loved that, reading it was quite entertaining, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think it takes you back to almost your younger days, when you're a little more free and you're just such a hopeless romantic. Well, at least I was. Like, I could fall in love with somebody different every week, whether it's someone on television or somebody else. And it just kind of takes you to that place. Like, I've been, in a relationship with someone for over 20 years. So it's been a long time since I've had kind of those when you're, feeling each other out, you're piquing each other's interest and doing that. So it's kind of nice to read books like this because it's kind of that little escape that takes you back to that part of you.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it takes you back to like an innocent part of you in a lot of ways. Like you just don't know what you know now. And so you see, these characters, these exes that Tara is looking up and she's sort of going, oh, okay, and you can kind of relive that yourself through, you can think about your own exes and the relationships that you had. And I thought the book was very relatable that way. And so it was a lot of fun to read.
It sure was, yeah. And I think the same thing about the innocence. And I definitely was one of those kids that fell in love with just about every person, every student in my class. Like, oh yeah, you're really cute today. I don't know what it is. And then another week I'm on to somebody else, little friends. That was like a long time ago. But she certainly has kept all of those thoughts about all of those people for a very long time and holding on to things as well.
In the book, she explores 10 past romances, or has a list of 10. She doesn't quite explore all of them. The part about holding on to them or holding on to their things was interesting too. Have any of you kept anything belonging to ex-boyfriends?
I have
like
letters.
An X-Files box. Okay.
Yeah.
I have letters. I remember, again, my art boyfriend. He wrote me this letter about... and I remember it to this day because he's into art. Pavlov's dog. That whole theory of like, I'm trying to think of how that even went now. When you salivate just thinking about something, it's like an existential kind of experience. And I think he was a philosopher. Anyway, he wrote me this whole letter about all of this stuff. And I'm like, I still have it somewhere. But I don't, I have a lot of letters actually from ex-boyfriends, but no stuff. Like I think in the book, Tara kind of connected with one guy, or she didn't actually connect with them. She sort of a phone call or something, and he said, "Yeah, I just want my T-shirt back."
Right? Yes.
After how many years? It was a Beatles T-shirt or something. It's like, yeah, I just want my T-shirt back. Wow.
Yeah, I've got a box full of stuff. Anything from framed photos. I mean, it's a shoebox, so it's not massive, but it's still at my parents' place. Like I'm married now. I haven't brought it over to my house, so it doesn't really hold any value for me. But it's just one of those things I haven't really thrown away. But I think about it all the time. I think about just get rid of it. Like I don't go through it. I don't need it. But I don't know why I have it. And it's not like I want to, I'm sure if my mom ever sold the house she's in or whatever, it would just get tossed because I don't want to bring that over to my home. But it's just there. So I don't know. Like it made me think, okay, maybe next time I go to my parents' house, I just throw it away. What do I need it for? Except for there is one I stole for an ex-boyfriend in high school. I stole a baby picture, I think, from his mantle because I thought he looked cute as a baby. And I've got that. So I've had guilt over that where I'm like, this was a photo maybe his mom took of him. Maybe I should find a way to drop this off to him because it's a baby photo. It's not like a photo of us grown up. It's just, it's a cute photo. And I'm like, I don't want to throw like a baby photo in the trash.
Oh my gosh, that is sweet. Wouldn't his folks think that was cute?
Or they'd be like, oh, she's crazy and she's returning his things like all these years later.
She wants back in. That gives me an idea. A good way to declutter. Like look at some of the pictures that I still have, put them in a box, and then decide, okay, is it worth hanging on to? But I don't have a lot of things either. And I think in recent years, it's hanging on to emails or like there's a text or something it's in my inbox. I don't know why it's there. I never go to it, and I also don't want to open it up for fear of reading whatever might be there. So I think I should start decluttering.
Yeah, it's interesting how we hold on to those things,
Yeah, and then sometimes, when you do have letters or emails or texts, sometimes you don't, you want to keep them, but you don't really want to go down that road and feel the way you felt when you got
Yes.
it. So it's a weird, it's a weird thing with that. It's like, I'm not that person anymore. But, when you read it, you're like, remember the pain.
But do you find now the three of us work in radio and, we're around music all day. And do you find, with songs, they take you back to moments, and there's some songs I'll hear and I'm like, it just takes me back all the time to that moment, to that feeling.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, I grew up in a lake community, and there was a bunch of us kids, farm kids, and it was the year that Foreigner 4 came out, that album. And every single song on that album reminds me of partying in this old house with all these kids. And during that time, there was there was a death, and then there was, so it's a big emotional journey. That's like when I was 14 to 16 years old, I think. And so when I hear anything by Foreigner, in particular that album, it's like, bang, I am right back in that space.
Oh, it's so powerful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Power of music. Like nothing else. Like smell, I guess, too, right? But really just takes you back. Yeah.
I was just going to ask about her exes, about Tara's exes, and if you had a favorite of hers in the book.
I really liked the storyline with Daniel, her, childhood love. I thought that was really sweet and innocent still. Like when they ended up getting together, they were able to kind of go back and have conversations like they did. And of course, nothing was going to come out of it. But it was just, again, that beautiful, innocent friendship. And I also liked Brandon, the one who wanted to just travel the world, even though
son of a diplomat.
Yeah, even though I was like, a part of him seems kind of shallow and he'd probably cheat on me. But it was like, but the adventure was calling. And I was like, that would be fun. So I think those two, they were the ones that I was kind of like, oh, they're not terrible.
Yeah, and I think Simone too. I was sort of with Daniel for sure, because he was her childhood sweetheart, and he just ended up being this sweet guy that she remembers as a kid. And so I really love that. He didn't really want anything from her, and when she said what she was doing, and then she ended up taking him to the Valentine's Day dance, it was just really lovely. I just liked his character, and I got why she had such a close bond with him, because they were kids. And so that was really cool. Brandon, I was interested in, because I think Tara was like, he wanted to travel the world and he wanted to do this. And it's like, why didn't I want to do that? Mm-hmm. I want to do that, and then she goes and meets him, and she's like, yeah, no. This guy is just like, his trips isn't just, a 2-week trip to Mexico. He is traveling 24/7. And so she finally realized, yeah, that's not me. How exciting that may sound, that is not me. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because I think we do prop up some of our exes in a certain light of, we should still be with them. And then you realize, like Tara did, that's why I'm not, because I didn't want that life. Thought I did, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So those two were kind of interesting, yeah.
I was also a fan of both of them, especially Daniel, and I was hopeful before we found out eventually what happened. I thought, I am hoping for her. I want them both to be together, and I think because they had such a bond, and he didn't forget her. He remembered everything about their relationship at a very young age, and I was also for a moment hopeful that Seth and his character might actually turn around and recognize how wonderful she was, and that she was actually the one that got away. And even though, he dumped her and he had moved on quite quickly, I was hoping that he wouldn't turn into being such a jerk.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting that we were kind of rooting for her, like we said, for her to be with Daniel, be with someone else, but then you're rooting for her to be with Trevor. So this is why this novel is so different. It's kind of like, it is like how they used to, Trevor and Tara used to sit on the couch and watch The Bachelor. It was very Bachelor-esque. And I think he was sucked into it too. Like he wanted to know about these exes, where in a lot of cases, if you like someone, you're like, don't tell me about your ex. I don't want to know. Where he wanted to know, and he was invested in her story. And here we are rooting for her to be like, ooh, I wonder if a second chance romance will happen. But at the same time, it's like, no, but we want Trevor to, get himself together and tell her he likes her.
I don't know about
Yes.
you guys, but I just, you talk about them, sitting on the couch together because they were forced together roommates, right? And I just, I just love the easy banter between them, and there's a scene in the book that I still think about. It's when she goes and locks herself in the bathroom. I think that's after she got there first and saw him with another woman. And then he goes and gets a bag of Cheetos and he feeds her, it gives her, Cheetos between the door, and they talk between the door. And at that point, I thought, I wonder if something's going to happen with these two, because I just loved that exchange. It was just so easy. And that continued, throughout the book, that they had this really cool relationship. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on underneath the surface, of course. This is a slow burn. You know that they probably have feelings for one another, but it's just the ability to just be themselves with each other, and how, she is like a lot in a lot of ways, and he just raises his eyebrow. And I love that. Like, he was opposites attract, right? He can't stand the fact that she doesn't eat properly and her books are all over the place. And he's meticulous about, there's this one scene where he's like bleaching down the counter. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well,
guy.
even organizing her books and stuff, that's really cute.
It was really cute. There was a lot of cuteness, along with her quirkiness. There was, it was very sweet. I really loved it. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I'd love to hang out with them and just admire what they had.
Yeah. I think we all sort of want that. I was actually thinking, I have had relationships with guys in that sort of sense. And I just, truth be told, I really love men. Like, I like hanging out with men. I like them as friends, and there's just something that I love talking to them. I love all that kind of stuff, So I just really loved that whole part between Trevor and Tara.
And I think that's just it. They were great at communicating. And I think because they were able to build a friendship, that this, it will lead to a successful relationship, because they put everything else aside and they just really got to know each other and talk about things. And even when they finally, get together in the end, it was kind of like, let's always just be honest. If there's something that is bothering you about me, tell me right away. Do not hold it. Do not wait to let the resentment build up. Let's just call it out and talk about it and then move on. And I think that's so important.
Absolutely. And then, who knows, it might turn into a romance.
Yeah.
Yes, a romance, people forced together, and then, you basically are so comfortable with one another, you tell each other everything, and I just love that. I loved, if you have the hots for somebody, like there's a part in the book where she had a sex dream about him. Like, we've all been there, right? Having those.
Oh, my, yes.
Those
hot,
sex
hot, hot.
dreams. Yep. It's like, oh, wow. You just don't want to have one about a guy at work.
No.
And that happened to me one time.
No. Yep, it's happened to me.
Like and it's like you go to work and it's like you just blush and you just don't want to run into this person. It doesn't mean anything.
I
and
know.
You just think, why did I have that dream in the first place?
Or you forget that you had the dream, and then you think, what is so familiar about you today? Never mind.
No.
Never mind.
Oh, we were together last night in my dreams. Someone once told me that when you're dreaming, whoever you're dreaming of, like, your souls are together at night together, and that's why you're dreaming of each other. What? So I always think, like, okay, if I had a dream about that person, did they dream about me too? Like, did they have some kind of weird connection? And then now, like, they're thinking about me and I'm thinking about them, and we're both just, like, really weird.
Yeah. Awkward.
I know.
Awkward. So when you think about these two that are, like, kind of thrown together, and, this lovely relationship develops between them and then gets really hot towards the end. And of course, she's looking at all of her exes. But she also has, like, an Instagram account, or I can't remember what she calls it, but she's, hey, book lovers, that sort of stuff. And she's always talking about the fact that it's really hard to meet cutes, is what she calls them. People for real in a cafe when you're out and about. And she's like, it's become so difficult in today's world, because everybody's online. Like, do you actually meet anybody physically anymore? Is there an opportunity to do that? Or do you like hide behind a screen and exchange, a month's worth of emails before you finally meet? What do you guys, I don't know. I think it's kind of sad. I met my guy organically, if you want to call it that, at a nightclub that had opened up, after COVID. And it just sort of happened, and I've done the online thing and it's crazy.
I think for me, I feel like I've not done online dating, but I certainly look quite a bit. I've just not made that commitment to actually sign up and go ahead with it. But I do message a number of people through other social media, connections that we've had or we follow each other. And again, it's more of the, I'm just really comfy behind my laptop or on my phone chit-chatting. And I don't know if it's convenience with everything today. And that's how it has become as far as relationships go, unless it's some major spark and it's like, you know what, we have got to make this happen. I don't know about the meet cutes either because of the way that we date in this world of ours today.
Now, like for anyone who grew up in the last 15 to 20 years, you've just been around screens. So that is natural to you. Whereas we growing up, still, if we wanted to play with a friend, we had to show up at their door and go knock and talk to them. It wasn't just sending a text message and saying, hey, do you want to meet at the park? Yes, no. And, it was like if you're going on a date, you had to show up because the person was expecting you. Now It's easy to cancel or just ghost someone. So, and even now, like sometimes there's just times where instead of like if someone's texting me and it's too much, I'm like, can I just call you? Like, I just want to talk to you on the phone. I don't want to text. So, I think for some of the newer generation, this is just their world. Like it's just easier to do it online. Whereas I think if you're still older and you've, typically in the past been able to go and approach someone on a date or blind date, you might be more open to, if someone bumps into you and a stranger smiles or starts talking to you, be a little bit more receptive as opposed to, okay, this is weird. Why are you talking to me? Because there's so much non-talking in the world these days. So it's, and especially with COVID, a lot of people went back into their shells, still feel very awkward in social settings and situations. So it just really depends. I think it can still happen, but it's just a matter of if that person or people in those situations are open to being less guarded and letting it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. I've done the online dating thing. It's been years. But and again, it is probably generational, right? Like I grew up, around people, not so much behind a computer screen. So what I was always uncomfortable with the online dating thing was giving so much of myself in terms of information, because I'm just like, I don't want to put myself out there to that degree. I want someone to learn about me as we sort of go along. But at the same time, I understand that you kind of have to do that because that is the only way that these other people are going to know who you are, is if you tell them who you are. I was just always, I understand it on a sort of, I understand it on one level, but on the other level, I was always uncomfortable putting out so much information about myself, But that, again, just because of my age, I think that's sort of like you said, kids nowadays, that's how they communicate. The texting, the texting and, Snapchat and like everything is online, and they develop those relationships online. And then,
And I think it's probably easier to have multiple partners now. Whereas before, if you're dating someone, you're setting aside like a couple of hours to go spend with them. So it's like, you set up the weekend to have this date and you're out. And now I always think like if I was single and I'm online dating and then you're doing so much communication online, like this person could equally be communicating with so many other people online, because it's not like you're taking that 3 to 4 hours of your day to go spend with someone. You can just be talking to how many ever people you want. And that's what scares me about it, because it's like, not to say that somebody who's with you couldn't do the same. I just think now it's a little bit easier to get away with it too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Now, I've done a number of blind dates in the past, set up by people who are very close to me. obviously, unfortunately, they haven't worked out, but I love to get those in-person meetings because you feel a little more comfortable. One, because you've got the connection of the friend or the family member that's, gotten you together or introduced you in this form. So you've got that to start off as an icebreaker, I guess, and then go from there. But if that were to happen today, somebody setting you up, they could also be looking at their phone and setting up other dates at the same time while you're meeting them in person. So yeah, I guess it's what you're willing to get into or commit to, I suppose.
Yeah, and it feels like it's almost easier because you have more people to kind of meet online, but it's also harder because you're, friends I've talked to who are doing this, they say, you're always one swipe away from someone better. Whereas I think like when I met my husband, there wasn't a lot of, it was just basically like, I'm attracted to you, you're attracted to me, great, let's date. Whereas now there's so many more factors and you could always be like, well, what's next? It's just almost easier in that way to meet people, but harder to really want to connect because there's just so much to choose from.
Yeah, it's a little overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We'll just throw out this one thing because I just wanted to know, like many women, we tend to eat when we're stressed or we just have stuff. So Tara, throughout the book, she's addicted to chips and cheesies. And she eats them with abandon. Do you guys? Yeah. Do you guys have that? What is your guilty pleasure? If you get stressed or if something's going on, and it's I'm just going to go grab what? What am I going to go grab? Oh my gosh!
Usually everything and anything in front of me.
Yep.
Love it.
But it's definitely Reese peanut butter cups, or something peanut butter, something chocolate, but usually the peanut butter chocolate combo.
Yeah, for me, a glass of red wine paired with some sweet chili heat Doritos.
Oh, I love sweet chili. Yes.
That's the go-to.
Now
The flavor, both the flavors in your mouth. It's just yes, this is getting me through my difficult day.
Yeah.
Love
or chips
it.
The old chips and dip. Doesn't matter what kind of chip. If there's an onion dip, I'm game on.
And what about you, Tanya?
I'm like a cheese. I'm Cheetos cheesy puffs. So I'm going to say, sometimes I'll go buy a big bag because I just have a craving for them and I'll just sit there and I'll eat them and you get orange fingers like Tara does.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I do that. My tummy is not happy with me at all. The red wine, Simone, they pair. It's funny because I remember in the liquor store they were pairing some, I think it was Woodbridge with Miss Vicky's, and you'd go buy a bottle of wine, and then there'd be a coupon for a Miss Vicky's bag of chips, and it works,
that's smart.
Honestly. Not the regular ones, the ones in the red bag. Yeah, red wine and Miss Vicky's regular chips.
Barbecue
Pretty
flavor.
Yummy.
Yeah, the red bag.
Yeah, just yummy. Yep, very good.
Now I'm
Clever
taking
marketing
notes
there.
of what I need to pick up on the way home.
Yeah, right?
But
Okay.
peanut butter and chocolate, hey, yeah.
Yum. The perfect time to connect with the author of Exes and O's, Amy Lee, and ask some of our burning questions. Hi, Amy. You've got Simone, Deb, and Tanya here with you today.
Nice to meet you guys.
You as well. We are so thrilled and so excited to have you with us and talk about your sweet and ever so hot rom-com that you've created for us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you guys.
This has been such a funny and very entertaining read. Was it as fun creating this as it was for us reading it?
Oh, absolutely. I think I've written about 5 books now, and this one was definitely my favorite book that I've ever written. I think just because getting into the mind of Tara, the main character, and just really, amping up her thoughts and her actions was just so fun for me. And just delving into that humorous side was a really good time.
I really enjoyed this one because it was a slow burn, and I haven't read anything like that recently. So it's almost like it makes you want to read faster because you're like, when are we going to get to what we need to get to? You know? and the three of us were talking. There's never really been a book that I've read where you're rooting for the character to almost hook up with an ex-boyfriend, but at the same time, you're rooting for her to hook up with Trevor. So what was kind of the thought process behind that?
Yes, I mean, that was interesting because when I first started conceiving of the idea, that this romance-obsessed, hopeless romantic basically would, go on a journey to see if she can have a second chance romance, I originally had planned for her to end up with an ex so that it was, a true second chance kind of love story. And one of the things that I've learned, I guess, as a writer when, developing a character is to never give your character what they want in the beginning. And, because that was her goal straight from the first couple chapters. And it's always much easier to, throw a bunch of roadblocks in there and then make them in the end realize that they want something different. And I think that, really allows for a more fulsome character arc. And so I just thought, let's give her a really hot roommate and see where that goes. And, have her end up with somebody that she did not expect to end up with.
And he was a very hot roommate.
Oh, yeah, we all still have thoughts of him and will continue to have thoughts of him for many more days.
I saw on your Instagram you were doing a giveaway for Trevor Metcalf bookmarks, and I was almost like, oh my gosh, I need one of those bookmarks in my life.
I will have to send one to you.
With the list of Tara's exes and talking about how Trevor was not, top of mind for her right away, can you tell us who you might have been thinking of with those exes?
So definitely Daniel, who was her, kind of childhood crush, first love. I love second chance romances, where they're together at some point in their life and then they have years of distance and then come back together. There's something so nostalgic and romantic about that. And so that was the original thought. Of the exes on the list, there's some that are really horrible, some that are, sort of in the middle. And then he in particular was actually really great, but he just wasn't for her. And in the end, but originally he would have been the front runner, I think.
We all loved him.
Yeah, you wrote it. He was. We loved him. I think all of us said, "Yeah, Daniel," and it was just sort of really lovely how you handled that. Writing Daniel, I think I fell in love with him because he was just so sweet, and then you realize that she's not the guy for her. This is Tanya here in Edmonton, Amy. You use the word crazy a lot in the book about crazy ex-girlfriends, and she meets all these exes and they're like, yeah, you were a little crazy, you were this, why did you what were you trying to kind of convey in talking about that all the time and making her like these crazy ex-girlfriend? And a lot of women get called that, and so what were you hoping to sort of say by writing about it?
Right. I think in the media in general, in so many rom-coms that I watch, whether that's movie, film, TV, books, you always see the portrayal of the crazy ex-girlfriend. And it's always, this crazy girl yelling at this guy, and then, they're usually used for comedic purposes to sort of set the guy on the path to the much calmer, level-headed love interest. And I always thought, there's a story behind this ex-girlfriend character. Why is she portrayed as crazy? And, what did she just randomly decide she was going to freak out? Or did the man actually do something to make her angry? And I think in society, women's emotions, if they're heightened just a little bit, they often just get written off as, quote, crazy. And I always think of the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days with Kate Hudson and Matt McConaughey, one of the classics. And it always struck me how Kate Hudson's character originally is, this super cool, one of the guys kind of girl. She can eat burgers, she loves sports. And then when she purposely begins to act clingy and drive him away, that's the portrayal of, a crazy girl. And I just thought it would be interesting to really tackle that and delve in deeper as to why it's so easy to write women off that way. And, Tara of course, pushes that boundary. And, I did that for the comedic purposes, but I think that a lot of women will be able to relate on some level to, being called that in the past, or, having heightened emotions and people misconstruing that. So that's pretty much what I wanted to do, and, humanize them and show how harmful these stereotypes can be as well, and really show that even though you may be guided by your heart and emotion, it shouldn't be viewed as a weakness, but as a strength.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, women, we are very different creatures, like we are not men, and we act, like you say, heightened emotions. We react to things in differently than men will, and oftentimes it is construed as being, she's crazy. It's like, no, she's not. Yeah. We're just reacting off of what you're giving us,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes, there's a lot of gaslighting involved in that. It's easy to say, oh, she's crazy, but really, what did you do, though? There's probably a long list of things that she would say that you did to get her to this point. And that's often overlooked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's interesting, when the three of us were talking, the search Tara has for meeting up again with, she's got this list of 10 ex-boyfriends. She doesn't meet all of them. But Deb had a moment during our conversation where she's like, maybe I should reach out to some exes and find out, where things took a turn. Has anyone else mentioned this to you or been inspired to do this after reading this book?
Yeah. You know what? I have had a couple people message me and say that it made them think about their exes. I don't know for sure if they have reached out, but I think there's a lot of people who it kind of prompted them to think about people that they've been with in the past. And I know for me writing it, I did the same. I definitely didn't reach out, but yeah, it made me think about past relationships and kind of reflect a little bit.
Yeah, and not that I am expecting, the fairy tale or happily ever after with them, but just to get that closure and have a discussion and then kind of sit with them and think, wow, that was really a different time. Like, she was able to look back and think and question herself as to how they got together in the first place, but also in the same light as the crazy ex-girlfriend or the crazy girl. Is it because we've grown up with always wanting the fairy tale, or from, when we were quite young, the fairy tale written for us was quite different from what it could be now. I love romance, and I still believe in some kind of a fairy tale and happily ever after. I think you do too, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I think it looks very different for different characters, and that's one of the most fun things as a romance writer, is exploring these different characters and really examining what their happily ever after will be. Some people it's not marriage and kids and the white picket fence. Some people it's their careers first, and it's just really fun to explore those goals through the lens of different people.
I like that. Like, what's your fairy tale? What does it look like?
Honestly, a mix, I think. I definitely, I am married, and I'm pregnant, so I'm, going to have the whole...
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you very much. But I also, career has always been really important to me, and so I spent, after, I finished school, I went straight into career and have been doing that for the past almost decade now, and then started doing writing. And so it's kind of a mix, I think, of chasing goals and making sure that there's nothing that I regret, but then also, leaning into love. And, I think finding the want to find somebody and somebody to share your life with is just so universal, and something that most people do want, even if they don't want to admit that.
Yeah, so true. I had never read any of your books prior to this, but this is part of like a trilogy. So you had Set on You that featured Crystal's storyline, and now we've got this, and then your next one will be more about Mel. So how did you kind of come up with this concept, and is there a specific reason they're all kind of influencers?
Yeah, so yes, it's a trilogy. They all technically can be read as standalone, and they can be read out of order. I sort of wrote them on purpose that way. Set on You was the first one, like you said, and I think when I was pitching the idea to my agent and my editors, we kind of realized, we have two strong side characters here. especially Tara. I think when I was writing her as Crystal's sister, as the support for Crystal, I was just drawn to her voice and her personality immediately, and kind of realized, this girl deserves a happily ever after, because in the first book you see her as just coming off of the big breakup. Her wedding has been canceled, and I just felt bad for her and thought she deserves the book as well. I think the influencer thing came out just because influencers are so huge now. They've just had literally so much influence in pop culture today, and I just thought it would be interesting to capture girls who have harnessed that and really taken that on. And for Tara in particular, it was easy for me to conceive of her as somebody who is a big book reviewer, big on TikTok, because I think with the difference between being a fitness influencer like Crystal in the first book and then a fashion influencer like Melanie is in the third, is, book influencers and book reviewers don't get paid, really, aside from in free books. And she is such a passionate person that it just fit her character to do something purely for the love of it. And her obsession with romance extends so far that she, reads them so much and wants other people to be able to experience them as well.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Mm-hmm. You have a full-time job, right? Like kind of what you want to call a day
do.
job, like, and maybe doing something that is not your passion. And of course, you are now writing books. Like, when did you decide to take this on? Because of course, you're doing it outside of the job. And how has that journey been for you?
Right. Honestly, it's been a lifelong journey, I guess you could say. I've written pretty much since I was old enough to write in crayon when I was a little kid. I always loved reading, and so books always were a massive inspiration to me. As a preteen, I would sit on the family desktop and write angsty teen love triangle romances. So when I went away to university, I stopped reading and stopped writing just because, academic responsibilities, social life. And then it wasn't until my, mid-20s when I started working my full-time job where I just wanted, a fun outlet and a fun hobby. And so I got back into reading romance and fell in love with the genre and, just had inspiration as I read to maybe try my hand at it again. And because I had taken so many years off of doing any creative writing, I opened the first Word document and started typing, and I reread what I typed and thought, oh gosh, I'm not cut out for this. So I really had to practice, because in my day job, I write, very short to the point, briefing notes and things like that. And it's totally a different type of writing than creative writing, of course. So it took a long time to get back into it. But once I did, I couldn't stop. And I just got really, really excited about, where romance is going and how much it's changed over the past decade. And that led to the first book.
And what do you think, I have people, over the years that, if I'm reading a book that is anywhere near a romance, I get the raised eyebrow or you talk about the Hallmark movies, right? Like, do you think, there is a place for romance novels in our lives and movies, right?
Absolutely.
They serve a purpose.
For sure. I think romance, why do people love puppies and joy? Romance is that. And I think it shows us portrayals of healthy communication and consent that we don't often get in other forms of media. I think of portrayals of relationships in shows like Game of Thrones. Like, it's just totally different. And I think that it always has had a negative stigma as, a guilty pleasure or just an easy read, even though realistically it's the most profitable genre in fiction. And I think the reason for this is we live in such a patriarchal society, unfortunately, where things that women enjoy traditionally are devalued. And, it's important to note romance is not just for women, but it is historically is much of the readership. And I think sometimes society values stories that really focus on hardship and grief and despair as part of the human condition. And, people view those as literary and realistic. But I don't understand why, love and happiness isn't equally valued. And I think it is kind of a notion that's really steeped in privilege in a sense, because sometimes people who are having a really hard time in life can't always handle consuming dark books, and people need that escape, especially in the past couple of years. Things have been tough, and I think also there's a misconception that all romance is super light and fluffy, but I think now we're really seeing a turn in romance handling a lot of difficult topics, and very well. Things like grief, mental health, and I think that romance is really, really shifting, and people should stop being so ashamed of liking what we like and wanting a happy escape.
The more the merrier, I say.
Mm-hmm.
And more Trevors.
More Trevors. So, Amy, when does the next book, The Catch, release?
So that one should come out, I believe, early 2024, so next winter.
Ooh, so yeah, so I guess between the baby and everything, it's going to be a busy time for you.
Yes. I just finished the edits on it, though, so hopefully the rest will be a fairly smooth sailing for me.
Amazing.
Well, looking forward to that, yes.
Mm-hmm. We like to ask this as well. It just seems so fitting that your writing should be on the screen as well for more people to take in, and so we can, have a closer look at Tara and Trevor.
Yeah, that would be the dream. That would be amazing.
But nothing in the works, no talks?
Not that I can say right now, no.
Okay.
I have had a lot of people say that they can see it play out when they read it as a film. So it would be really, really fun to see that.
Yeah, and just seeing all the other characters, all the other exes outside of Trevor and what they're like. Maybe we don't want to see a lot of Segway Jeff, but I think the others, or Seth, we don't even know about Seth, but the other ones would be kind of fun.
Yeah, 100%. It would be fun to cast some of those characters.
And my husband's a realtor, so the realtor ex, I was like, oh, he seems really hot, but except for he was too douchey. But he was.
Yes, unfortunately, turned out to be a douche.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, for chatting with us. Like we said, we loved X's and O's. Such a great read, and we're all hopeless romantics, so it was a lot of fun. And thanks again for chatting with us.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it, and it was such a pleasure to be on with you guys and chat.
Thank
you so much, Amy.
And good luck with the family.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too. Bye, Amy. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for kicking back and relaxing with us. We hope you'll join us again on Relaxing Reads.